So I'm Ash Patel, Director of Business Transformation, probably the coolest job title I've had. It's a bit fancy. In short, I'm responsible for Cobweb and the solutions that Cobweb provide. For those that aren't familiar with Cobweb, just a little bit about ourselves before I kick off. We are a cloud solutions provider, as well as a solutions provider in the traditional sense. We have multiple data centers, all UK based, primarily in London. 24/7 support, 365 days a year. That's not personally, I cannot stand working on a weekend. But we have a network operations center based in the UK, and we offer out support to all of our customers, of which we have 200,000 plus users, 6,000 plus customers. And that's a mix of both our direct business as well as partners that work with us and offer out their value add wrap and then sell out to, in turn, their customer base. This is across a mix of verticals, but primarily we have a large legal and accounting base as well. So I'll give you some of the examples in and around those particular sectors and verticals. We've been running for 15 years. It's actually a bit longer than 15 years, but we've amalgamated a number of companies throughout that time. It may not seem like a long time, but in the world of cloud, it's pretty ancient, very, very ancient. Most of our growth has been in the recent times, and most of that reasoning I'll go into, but essentially the accelerated growth, and if you've walked around here, I've walked around here, you've probably seen the difference between this show in its past versus this show this year, and the focus around cloud and cloud and cloud and cloud, and the fashionable term that seems to be in place these days, and that's probably the driver for that acceleration. We are ranked number 1 in the EU for Exchange. For those that don't know really what Exchange means, in short, it's email. We provide hosted email for all of the customers that we have today, alongside a whole bunch of other services, but we're ranked number 1 for that service. So the world is changing. If you wanted to start a business many years ago, you'd actually have to generate your own power. So I'm talking a long time ago. And if we think about the revolution, the industrial revolution, manufacturing coming in, mass production then coming in, and so on and so forth, actually thinking about how you produce your own electricity to run your business is kind of really forgotten about today. But that's really the same principles that apply to where we're at in terms of the technology that we're seeing today. So you build your own mill, usually your business will be sat alongside a stream or a river, you generate your own electricity of some kind. You then got to think about the distribution of that electricity, the management, the running, the cost factors, so it's pretty expensive. And then came along the idea that we'd actually build power stations and power would be mass produced and production plants were created. Then we had the national grid, and then if you wanted to start a business, you actually didn't need to worry about building your own power station. So it became a lot more cost effective, and that's really where we started to see industrial revolution sort of kicking in and everyone having access to that power and doing whatever you need to do for your business. The internet is pretty much the same concept, and that's what we're seeing today with regards to hosted and cloud services. The internet is essentially our national grid, so the delivery of that, and our data centers are our power stations. And understanding the accelerators for that revolution is very difficult these days because of the exponential growth that we're talking about. Historically, with the growth of and the power outputs of renewable energy, etc., allows businesses to do more. But now, with the accelerated growth of the Internet of Things, how we run our lifestyle personally through various cloud services that we may or may not know are cloud services, is impacting on how our business is going to be successful going forwards, how our employees or your employees or you as an employee actually carry out your day-to-day job, plus how you live out your personal lives. Imagine life without a phone, let alone a smartphone, and think back to what it was like back then, emailing and how you share files. All of these kind of things are accelerating through the power of the internet and the speed of the internet as it's going along. That change is sort of driving how we transform our businesses, and it's also helping us to understand that we can do more, and we can do more a lot quicker. A couple of examples. that we have today in our regular lives, personal lives, Spotify, or if you're on EE, things like Deezer, when EE actually works. You've got things like iTunes, so on and so forth, where you're out accessing the information as opposed to having to get it yourselves from CDs, records, whatever. It takes your fancy historically, but you're now not buying the actual assets, you're actually accessing the assets. Similar approach back to the power piece. You're not building and buying your own power, you're now just accessing the power on a utility consumption, and the same philosophy is applying to all services today. Uber, hands up if you've heard of Uber. Use Uber, it's great, isn't it? You can just access a taxi whenever you need, wherever you are, as long as the service is available, and you can choose what kind of taxi you want depending on your budgets, etc., how lavish you wish to run your lifestyle. And as of last week, you can now actually Uber a helicopter, right, for the Cannes Film Festival. If you can afford it. 160 euros a pop, if you want. It's not too bad. It's probably the cheaper way of renting a helicopter. But the idea around Uber and how Uber have built their business up alongside Spotify, both through legal means and not, in Spotify's case at the beginning of their lifespan, but now in the legal means, because of the changes in legalization, the consumption, governance, compliance, all of that. And even Uber's going through that barrier of London taxis. If you live in London, around Uber and London taxis kind of going head to head. The traditional mechanism of getting a taxi versus Uber, and essentially the concept's the same, but it's the power of the internet that's driving Uber and Uber's success versus the sort of downscaling of London taxis because of the cost inhibitors. Their overheads are higher, their fuel costs, their licensing, the taxis themselves, the insurance, whereas Uber is running on such a low overhead in a cost-efficient manner through the power of the internet that they're able to run a cheaper service, and that's why we, and certainly me, being very, very cheap, like to use Uber. And it's also there and efficient, and you're just accessible wherever you want. So it meets my needs. From a business perspective, Uber is actually growing within the business space a lot more. In fact, they're growing so quickly, they can't handle their own growth. Another example, Netflix. Hands up if you use Netflix. All right. Blockbuster, Netflix. You don't really need more of an explanation beyond the fact that Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore. And Netflix is now the world's largest provider of video on demand. And Amazon are following up quite shortly with Prime. But you're no longer renting the actual physical DVDs. You don't own the DVDs as assets unless you actually physically want to. But you have that luxury available to you should you wish to have it. But you're just accessing the information when you want, where you want, and consume as much of it as you like, and you have multiple people using it too. I have an account, my niece, my nephew use it, and I can tell when they're watching things they shouldn't be watching, which is quite good. Their mum always gets annoyed the fact that I give them access to anything, because I can't be bothered to manage it. But they have what they want when they want, and I have what I want, where I want to. I don't have to bother about having my hard drive with me where I go. Right, but that's quite conceptual to my parents, where it's actually taking your DVDs with you or your VHSs with you, or if you're talking really far back, your Betamaxes and so on and so forth. But it's all there. You don't need to worry about taking anything with you. You don't even need your own laptop these days. You just log in, as long as there's an internet connection, you're good. But it's all based on the power of the internet. How this is affecting business, and in short, massively, incredibly. So if you assume that consumer approach and apply it in the business environment, it is exactly the same, and it's what's driving productivity, it's what's driving growth, and understanding that mechanism and understanding how those types of businesses are growing would enable you to understand how that principle applies to your own business going forwards. And it's where I mention and talk about, it's really about accessing as opposed to owning. Examples of these services are like OneDrive, where we think so like Dropbox, if you're familiar with Dropbox, but taking your files with you virtually as opposed to physically. You've got notepads, you probably type your notes up somewhere, or you'll remember them, and I don't know what you might do with your notes. You might have your iPad, you might take notes, and so on and so forth, dictations. But essentially, OneDrive allows you to access your files wherever you are, no matter what you want to do, the key differentiator there versus a public service is the fact that within the business, you've got to adhere to governance, compliance, security standards, not just yourselves, but your customers, and potentially anyone who you may interact with on a commercial basis. You need to meet their requirements too. So services specifically designed for business is where the key differentiators lie, but the principles remain the same. So accessing your data where you want, how you want, wherever you are, but it's all in a secured fashion specifically designed for businesses. Another example is Office 365. Hands up if you've heard of Office 365. Okay, for those of you who haven't, it's Microsoft's version of their traditional software and services just put into the cloud that you can then access where you want, when you want, how you want, consumed on an operational expenses basis as opposed to CapEx. So it makes it more affordable, but essentially you can do more with it where you want, how you want, gives you more access to productivity, which I'll talk about a little bit more, but essentially it's giving you all the tools that you traditionally had available on demand, when you want, how you want. So it's applying that consumerization element back into your business. Apply that to how you work with your customers. You can be closer to them, you can work with them, you can work physically where they are. They can have access to the information that they need from you, where you are, where they are. It makes it very, very flexible. Communicating is another point. Skype, we use Skype? Yeah. So Link is essentially the business version of Skype, soon to be rebranded, if not already, to Skype for Business, as long as they win the lawsuit from Sky, because there's an issue going on between Microsoft and Sky at the minute with the name. But essentially, it's secure communications, because you can communicate with your customers. We are all here. We're all accessing the Wi-Fi, or you may be on your mobile network. You will have emails on your phone in today's age. You're probably emailing today to make sure you've got on track and making sure you're not missing out on anything. You may not be bothered. But the question marks are, is that actually secure? Are you communicating securely? If you're using a free service like Skype, for example, is it appropriate for your business? Is it not? It may be, may not be, but these are the points to consider, and therefore services like Link are there where the appropriate security protocols are met where required. But some examples of how the consumerization is sort of moving into the cloud space. How this works for you, well, we have a unique opportunity because you can do more, pretty much anything you want today, because of the exponential growth of the services within the cloud space. You have an idea, you can go to market with your idea incredibly quickly. I can assure you that most of the organizations that you're seeing today probably haven't been around very long. And if they have, the products that they're offering out, the services they're offering, certainly haven't been out very long. And the ones that they are, they've probably got new versions coming out in the next coming weeks. And they probably talk to you and they said, yeah, we've got a new version coming out this, we've got a new feature coming out soon, or we talk about a new feature. And that's the whole process around how you apply that to your own businesses or your own daily lifestyles as an individual. If you're an independent, a freelancer, you can be so incredibly flexible on how you do business creatively with your customer base or within your own organizations. And that restriction has been removed because of the Internet of Things, the power of the Internet, and the power of the services and the data centers and the access to the resources that traditionally you wouldn't have had. Back to the power station. Where we have our data centers today, you don't need to worry about having a server locked away in a broom cupboard and look after it and maintain it and support it. It's whatever you need is available on access on demand, like the Netflix approach. And the amount of resource you need is again dependent upon how much you need. Similar approach to your electricity at home today. You use what you need to use, you receive a bill, you pay for it. You're probably not going to be happy with the amount, but you have then comparison sites to choose the best approach for you. The similar approach is tending to happen now. We're seeing a lot more cloud comparison sites coming out these days. And it's all because it's all based on a commodity of a utilization. Now, it's enabling businesses to grow. Uber, as an example. From an accountant's perspective, we're seeing, it's specifically based on our experience with our customers, we're seeing accountants do a lot more innovative approaches based on how they work with their customers. And they're not just limiting that to accountancy. They're actually coming up with some significant consultancy-led value-add services, proactive management. We're actually seeing accountants take ownership of IT management for their customers, their support. They might outsource that back into Cobweb, but essentially they're trying to work out what can you do more as an accountant within your existing customer base than just your traditional day-to-day roles that you're offering out to your customers. Because everyone, including myself, wants more from our existing suppliers. They want more for whatever you buy, want more from whatever it is that you're paying for on a monthly basis. And that includes your Netflix, your Ubers, etc. And that's where now Uber's coming up with the helicopter piece, right? It's just bringing those things that aren't affordable historically to being affordable and being on a consumption model. That liberating element, and that's really the key factor there, is enabling this to liberate you and enabling you to focus on the business that's essential to you and forgetting about your traditional IT worries, because we're not talking about managing a server, how you do your IT. If something breaks, you phone someone up, they tell you to switch it off and switch it back on again after about 30 minutes of waiting. All of that is gone out the window these days. It is literally about how you take the technology and how you then actually make it work for your business. Most of the support calls that we get are no longer about this doesn't work, that doesn't work. The questions tend to be, number one, it's not usually from the IT departments anymore, or the guy or the girl that manages the IT on behalf of the customers. It's usually around, I need to do this, or we have a customer that would like to do this, how can we do it? And our support team has now become my best sales function, as opposed to the sales team that we have. And that change is kind of revolutionizing how we model our own business. And we're actually going through that transformation ourselves as we speak. Our sales guys aren't happy about it, as you can imagine, because they're having less conversations, because it's really about trusted advisor and what you can do through technology to help your customers grow and develop. And that's really where we're now seeing, instead of being a traditional hoster of services like email, we're transforming our own businesses to actually providing solutions that enable yourselves to then in turn talk to customers, understand what they need, and then we help put that together. But it's not restricted to that. That's really about what your ideas are, and you also have the tools to do that too. It's really about what your core business value is and understanding what that core value it needs, what like to be going forwards, and the technology to enable that to occur, or the technology to be the route to actually execute that. What does that actually mean in terms of the liberating technology? So this is just our view. Of course, you can make your own view, but essentially freeing you up to do what you need to do and how you want to do it, and focusing on what you're good at, and potentially opening up to markets that you don't traditionally access or to services you don't traditionally offer, but you could, because you now have the scale factor to do so. You can integrate your business solutions, and you can allow people to work more independently. We're seeing a lot of businesses lose office space because they're gaining more office space indirectly through home working, remote working. We actually have less desks per head than we have per heads, on the basis that we know that our employees are more productive when they're not actually in the office and they're actually with our customers, talking about what they want. They work from our customer sites. We have 2 offices. The second office on a Thursday specifically, don't know why, but everyone likes to work in London on a Thursday. The other office is in Southampton or Fareham. But we actually have more non-Cobweb employees in our office on a Thursday than we have Cobweb employees, because we also invite our partners to come and work on the same basis that we offer our customers. Our partners are coming in and helping us to build our business through the technology. That's how we view the technology as being liberating, that we can then free up ourselves to be more creative and think outside the box. And that's really the kind of the core message that I want to deliver in terms of that liberating technology. Another view, integrating business solutions, increasing the speed of business, lowering operating costs, enhancing services, customers, and partners. Just on that factor alone. So a business solution is the perceived answer to a real problem. And this is the piece around historically where you see IT in the traditional sense of how you view IT versus really now it's talking about, forget IT, it's really about your business solution. What does that business solution look like? What does it need to look like? What is it? You don't actually need the cloud. It's you want to access your data where you want, how you want, when you want. It's just the cloud is the enabler to do that. It might not be through the cloud. You may just have your own data center if your pockets are really deep, perhaps, or you build your own. You could have your own little mini one. It doesn't matter. But the concept applies. It's the solution. The solution of being able to access what you want when you want. The cloud is just a fancy term to describe it. You don't need Office 365. That's the technology. What's key is being able to work flexibly, more productive. That's really what you need. How you do it is the big question mark. And there are multiple options available to do that. Same with Link. You don't necessarily need Link, but you do need to communicate securely. And again, that's the factor. So that's the mindset. It's throw the technology out the window. It's how you actually, what it is that you need to do, and then apply the technology that's available in the market today to enable you to do that based on your requirements. So cloud services, why would businesses want to use them as opposed to your traditional IT based on the business solution that you want? So you do have access to your data all the time. Software is always up to date. It's always available. I say always available. It's available as long as you have internet, basically. And at points when you don't have the internet, it is still available to a degree. And then when your internet is back up, it'll all do the sync thing. Right? Same with your phones, and send a text message. When you get its mobile signal, then it goes, and so on and so forth. Cloud services, so the reasons why not. Mostly, it's actually because people don't understand cloud, or they have their perception of the cloud, and that lack of understanding is the barrier to not choosing it. If you don't really understand the benefits for you, then is it the right approach? Maybe you need to understand the benefits, do a bit more research, understand it to a little bit more degrees, and then you can make that decision for yourselves. Therefore, you don't have an understanding of what the advantages are. So why would you do it? If you know, where there's mystery, there may be confusion. It becomes the barrier. If you don't understand something, you don't tend to do it. It's not safe. There's a big, huge thing at the market in the perception that it's not safe. Give you an example. Very large pharmaceutical company that I used to work with, and they wanted to move everything to the cloud. If you think about it's a pharmaceutical company, I'm talking one of the top 3 here in the globe. They want to be scale. They're trying to compete with the other 2 primarily. Lots of profit for them. They make shitloads of money, quite frankly. But when we went to see them, their servers were under a staircase, right? It was shocking, right? You think of a pharmaceutical company, they've got research data, they've got all sorts of information that's secure, vital to them, their IP, and their server was under a staircase, but they didn't move to the cloud because they thought it wasn't secure, right? Recently, there was a fire in Holborn. A lot of legal firms currently, A, have lost a lot of business, and B, all of their environment, their IT, their technology, based in their offices, gone. So around the security piece, the reality is actually cloud is a lot safer as long as it's the right cloud and it's configured and designed in the right manner, based against your needs, your governance, your compliance, and your customers' governance, compliance, and needs. So it's a bit of a myth, but as long as it's managed appropriately, it's actually the most secure way of running an infrastructure and running your business. So what's important for accountants and finance directors with regards to cloud? The advantages of cloud. It's pay-per-use, utilization model, so it's aligned to your scale and aligned to your agile business, giving you an agile business. If your peaks and troughs throughout the year occur at certain times of the year, then your infrastructure, your IT, your technology, your solutions should mirror that too. OpEx and CapEx. I certainly don't need to tell you the benefits of OpEx versus CapEx in today's market, and certainly for businesses in terms of managing their cash flow. Don't have to look after it. Don't have to maintain it. That's the job of the cloud solution providers. However, that said, support's a loose term. You can support any element of your solutions should you wish, or you don't have to support any of it. It's really up to yourselves. When I talk about support here, I talk about it in a technical manner. Always available, which we covered, and safe, depending upon your provider. Understanding the due diligence that you've done to make sure that your data is looked after in an appropriate manner, and should be supported and stored 24/7, replicated, multi-geo, meaning that should we have another Holborn, you have access to your information where you need and how you need it, and that should be one of the key benefits. So your business shouldn't be affected. And scaling it, being agile against your requirements. So how will the cloud work for you? As I said, it's really up to you how you wish to deploy your cloud. If you want to deploy a cloud at all, you can have it small, on site. That pharmaceutical company I talk about, they've actually got their own cloud now, not under their staircase. They've got their own data center because they have enough money to pay for one and run it. They look after it themselves, but they have multiple solution providers that actually are providing the solutions. It's just that that's where the data's stored. So that meets their requirements. And you have other companies that allow us to run the environment for them. And you have other organizations that simply want to put it out there in the public domain, like Microsoft, for example. Or you can have a combination of all, which creates the hybrid environment. Give some examples of the solutions that we offer before I go into the sort of the video and the example. Where I talk about we don't sell email anymore historically as we would. This is part of our transformation based on our customers' requirements. So, and when I say customers' requirements, this particular one actually came from feedback within our accountants base. So where we've now got traditional accountants offering technology and solutions as a service on a consultancy basis to their accountants or to their organizations where they're providing accountancy-led services, they're offering out productivity solutions based on software as a service. Have you heard of the term software as a service? Essentially, it's software, but offering it on a utility commodity type basis. Your Netflix, but for software, in essence. You pay for it per month or per whatever the unit of measure is. Once you stop using it, you stop paying for it. But a combination of these, depending upon the productivity that you need to do, whether it's a modern user wanting to work from their laptop, their iPad, their home device, access all their information, their application, whether it's Sage or so on and so forth, and enabling them to do more, collaborate with users together on the same document. One could be in Timbuktu, the other could be in Holborn when the fire's going off. Both can collaborate on the same document, same time. Think about how powerful that could be when you're actually with your customers, thinking about new ideas, understanding, whatever it may be, but there and then, taking that idea to market, putting it in place, and actually executing it all within the same meeting, there and then. That productivity solution can be quite powerful, and there's a whole host of those that we can offer. Business continuity. Again, I talk about the Holborn piece, and we then talk also about the fact that you no longer need to build your own power stations anymore, or have your own servers, or have your own technology. Should something happen, you shouldn't be affected as a business, so you're protected. Your data is always there, your services are always running. It just continuously enables you to be protected. That continuity actually then drills down into your customers' credibility with yourselves, or your credibility with your customers, rather, is what I meant. Now, for them to understand if they're working with you, or even yourselves internally, or yourselves as an individual, online banking, all the secure things that you run in the cloud today as an individual, you're assuming it's secure. You're assuming the provider is replicating it. Should something happen, if the DC blows up, it shouldn't affect you. And the same principles apply within the business. And if your customers are assured of that credibility and that secure, and they can understand and have that feel-good factor working with yourselves, then that in turn helps you to do more, because you're no longer worrying about actually looking after all of that and making sure it continues to run. And should we have a Holborn, because these things happen, you're not impacted. Securely communicating. This is actually one of the biggest downsides of businesses today in terms of governance and compliance. A lot of companies send emails. You're probably sending emails today, and you're probably sending it over the Wi-Fi here. you're sending in emails with potential confidential data, emails to your customers, customers back to you, so on and so forth. How secure is it actually? Do you have a solution in place to make sure that when you communicate, whether it be verbally, whether it be electronically via email, whether it be sending documents, whatever it may be, how secure is it? Does it meet the standards, governance, and compliance of your customers? Forget yourselves, your customers at this point, because that's who you're putting at risk potentially. And it's just understanding all of the complexities around what your customers' requirements are, what your own requirements are, and what your suppliers' requirements, how they meet your requirements, is quite important in this process. So ensuring you have a solution in place for securely communicating is incredibly important. And that control of how you do that. You may need email, you might not need to email securely at all. That may be the case, but it's just understanding that. Agility, again, peaks and troughs across the year. Certainly, and I'm going to make a stereotypical assumption here, so forgive me, but assuming end of the financial year, April time, most of your workloads probably go up, usually. If you're Hallmark, Christmas time tends to be a magic time of the year. Amazon, certainly it's the magic time of the year. I hate it because I've got a lot of nieces and nephews that I have to buy for. But your business has to be aligned to that peak and that trough. But do you really want to pay for that peak all year round just to make sure you're catering for that peak? No. So your agility and how your solutions are built and designed, forget the technology at this point, how your solutions work for you and how you work with your customers against those peaks and those troughs should be in place, and that helps you in turn to keep your business aligned, and that growth will then in turn occur organically, and that's based on our experience so far. Now, just before I go into the questions, just want to show you a quick video of our organization and some of the examples and of a particular customer who has, there it is, sorry, I lost my mouse there, who's actually taken some of these on board and converted their organization to a cloud-based organization. Can we put the sound up?
The broad portfolio of solutions that are becoming available through Odin is going to enable businesses to step back and look at the big picture, what it is that they're trying to achieve as a business, and what of these technologies enables them to fulfill that vision.
The Odin panel, with its API integration and service integration into other clouds, particularly Office 365 that's just been enabled with CSP, enables Cobweb to create hybrid and collections of services that are aggregate maybe 2-3 clouds into a solution for the small business. That's a very powerful and effective way of gaining a proper solution, a complete solution for those businesses.
Sirius and Cobweb have been working together to help launch secure messaging in the UK and throughout Europe. We identified them as a great fit for a strategic partnership because they're the largest hosting provider in the UK, and they have a great deep knowledge of cloud services from Hosted Exchange to Office 365 and beyond. We decided to partner with Odin because we felt that building a APS2 package with our technology would give us the greatest access possible to service providers, telcos, and other distribution partners worldwide. The development and execution was swift, and it's really given us a leg up on the competition and allowed us to build a solution that partners can bundle with other cloud services.
CBA is a global strategy boutique. We advise global companies on C-level topics. We've been with Cobweb now for the last 3 years. It stemmed from us looking to move away from our physical hardware into a cloud-based platform. We looked across lots of different providers and set on Cobweb because it looked like it was really going to offer us the most security. Cloud computing is important for our success because it offers us the flexibility to work internationally and be confident that our services will always be up. And that's, in the past, we would often suffer with hardware problems that would take days to fix, whereas now it never goes down. It's a total game changer for us. Where we're going into the future, I think it looks like we're going to be trying out the advanced email encryption. And again, that's really for us to be confident that we can communicate with between ourselves and equally to our clients in a secure fashion.
Odin is the, if you like, the gears that enable and drive the automation for Cobweb and the customer, enabling self-service and fast delivery of changes in the service.
Cloud services are changing the world because they're giving access to an exciting range of new applications and services to almost any business. And the potential for growth for these businesses now, for them to be able to concentrate on their core differentials instead of just spending their time doing the same stuff everybody else does, enables the people who take advantage of this to be able to grow at rates beyond their imaginings.
Excellent.